Welcome to the EmpowerHer Wellness podcast. I'm Morgan, and I'm thrilled to be your host and wellness coach as we navigate the path to a healthier, more confident you. As the owner of Get Fit With Me, I bring years of experience in personal training, nutrition, and coaching to each episode. Join me as we explore practical tips and strategies for fitness, nutrition, mindset, and more, all tailored for busy women just like you. Let's empower your wellness journey and achieve lasting transformation together. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the new episode of the EmpowerHer Wellness podcast. I'm your host and coach, Morgan Ekovich. And today's topic, I'm really looking forward to, one, our guest, and two, our topic, because I honestly believe it's a topic that does not get enough attention or credit when it comes to our overall health and well-being. And that is the topic of sleep. And some of you I know are thinking, sleep, I'll do it when I'm retired. I'll do it when I'm dead. I hear that all the time. But sleep is so critical to how our body repairs itself, for our mind to work, for our body to be able to metabolize, and so many other amazing things that our body does. But I also understand that a lot of us, we fall into different stages. Maybe you're a new mom and you are sleep deprived because you are learning how to navigate a new baby. Maybe you're now an empty nester and you're like, I have all this time. I'm not quite tired at the end of the day. How do I fall asleep? Maybe you're retired. Maybe you're going through menopause and your hormones are just kicking you in the back over and over again. So, with knowing there's so many challenges to sleep, and sleep is not a one size fits all approach, just like health and wellness, when I could talk to you, it is not a one size fits all approach. I have brought on an expert, Kelly Meyerson, today to talk about sleep. Welcome, Kelly.
I love that. Could you please intro every time I talk about sleep to really highlight all of those really important pieces? So, yes, I am a sleep expert, and my background is in occupational therapy and primarily in pediatrics. And my specialty is in sensory integration therapy. So, with sensory integration therapy, we're looking at the nervous system and how it works. Your nervous system is responsible for helping you stay online. Think of it as a supercomputer, right? What I've learned over time in having worked with lots of children, still work with children, but on the adult model, for us to start to really understand our nervous system and how it works, our biology, this is where I come in as an expert because I have a very strong understanding of the human body, development, how all of that works, and the pieces of how we look at each and every minute detail that goes into the wellness, how much sleep we get, how quality our sleep is, looking at all of those pieces together. And I take a very holistic approach. I really believe that looking at the person in their entirety is very important. That includes the environment in which you're sleeping, whatever challenges you may be experiencing, and then coming up with some individualized approaches to helping you sleep. And what I found over time from my own sleep challenges, especially because I really felt it when you said new mom. When I was a new mom, I have a 10-year-old now, sleeping much better than I was then. And I was ill prepared for how to manage my sleep at that time. I'm an expert also in doing all the things wrong and figuring out how to do the things right. So I think that is my sweet spot, lots of experience. And you said menopause, perimenopause, another area that I've now become more of an expert in as I'm going through that phase in life.
I love that. I love that you have such a deep background of the body and the holistic approach, which I think is a lot of people are starting to lean towards that now. It's always being in the health field. I feel like we are naturally drawn to that holistic way. But there are a lot of people who medication or daily sleep aids. Like when I was in high school, I was taking NyQuil every once in a while when I had to sleep. It wasn't often, but sometimes you needed a sleep aid, but sometimes people don't want that. And now we see more of that holistic side coming in. So now let's move into everyone who's juggling the family, the career, the personal health, and that sleep gets neglected. What happens to our body when we don't get enough sleep short term and long term? And what is short term is there a time frame that short term in? And then what classifies as we've hit the long term phase? We really need to figure something out.
You're going to be really disappointed to hear that it really only takes about 48 hours before your ability to fight off infection becomes diminished immediately after a bad night of sleep. And now we can talk about one bad night of sleep if you're generally sleeping pretty well and you kind of muddle through the day. It's not your best approach to relationships, to your work, to getting things done. And you're like, tomorrow's got to be better. Now, imagine if you're somebody who on the regular is not getting enough sleep or enough quality sleep. The areas of your life where you begin to suffer the most are involved in your frontal lobe. Now, your frontal lobe is the front part of your brain here. It's responsible for something called your executive functioning skills, your learning, your prioritization, your planning, your impulse control. So if this part of your brain goes offline, very immediately, you're not making good decisions. So let's make this like a practical thing.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you have a client and they're working on their fitness. They're on their health journey. They want to wake up, get in their exercise minutes at the beginning of the day, eat a very nutritious breakfast that's going to fuel them. They want to feel good. They want to be available for the people in their lives. Okay. Now, when we don't sleep well, not only are we at risk of having more difficulty with making choices, but the very fact that we have to muddle through, we have less impulse control, we're waking up in the morning and we have to decide, am I going to work out or not? If I'm not well rested, that ability for me to pull it together, not as good, right? So you can imagine if you have health goals, you're not as likely to achieve them if you're not sleeping well, because you're not preparing your body, because you don't have the best ability to make decisions. So that's a really big piece of it. But health-wise, it doesn't take long for you to start to have mental health challenges. So we're not talking getting into a mental disorder, but just your mental health will suffer because your brain is not replenishing the neurochemistry that you need. You're not feeling rested. When you're sleeping and you're getting deep sleep, it's not just your body repairing itself. It's just not feeling restful. There are a lot of functions that only happen when you're sleeping that are literally like the fluids and things in your brain are coming through and cleaning your brain and priming you, also helping you remember things. So if you're a student, if you're someone who has to remember things, if you did not get a good night's sleep the night before you're taking a test, it's very likely it's going to affect your performance on that test. And this is the scary part. It doesn't have to be just the night before. It can be that within the past week, you've had some poor nights of sleep. You actually lose information.
That I was always the kid in college who normal schoolwork was not something that I came easy to me. Like I was all hands on. I did really well with that. But when I had to like learn chemistry and sit down, I was the kid who would go to the library, be done by 8, in bed by 9, and then get to the library at 3 when they opened because I needed to get a good night's sleep so I could even function. Everybody else was like, "Oh, we'll be there till 2 when it closes." And I'm like, my brain is such mush after 9 o'clock, anyways. And I think we have a lot of parents and a lot of women who they hit that point in the day when they can physically feel that brain is no longer working to their ability. But instead, we push through our sleep suffers because, oh, it's the night before Christmas. All of this has to happen. Okay, what if we went to bed, right? Got some sleep and got up earlier? Does that work better in that sense once we feel our brain starting to go? Or does it really not matter which way we push the scales?
I think what you're talking about is so important because we all have a different set in terms of the time of day that it's best for us to fall asleep and wake up. So these are like, you might hear like sleep types. We can think of just like traditionally, I'm a night owl, I'm an early bird, right? So there's a few more types. I won't go deep into those, but know that they're out there and you can, we'll put resources in the show notes for a book
Yes.
that can help you identify your type, although some of us just know. So the time that you go to bed and the time that you get up can vary on the 24-hour scale. So some people who find like they can be motoring until 1 a.m. and they have the possibility to sleep until 9, and that works great for them. And maybe people like you, Morgan, who are like, I got nothing after 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock bedtime, and I can get up early and I feel like I'm more functional during that time. I think the biggest and most important piece of this is that it's not one size fits all. And just because you feel that extra bit of energy that hits you when you stay up a little bit past when you were already feeling fatigued doesn't mean you're a night owl. Doesn't mean that's going to be better for your sleep. The amount of sleep, though it varies, is still the same regardless of when you go to sleep and when you get up. So for most adults, we should be sleeping 8 to 10 hours. Caveat, we're all a little different. Men tend to need less than women. This is some new information that has come out that I can tell you practically. I thought that as well, that I tend to need more sleep. And there are times in our cycle, if you're menstruating or if you're following the moon cycle, when you need more versus less sleep. So those are some things to think about. But the most important thing to think about is your sleep opportunity. So that's the sleep opportunity you're giving yourself. So using your example, Morgan, when you knew I don't have much after 8, you know you can get up early. So if you know you want to get 8 hours of sleep, that doesn't mean you go to bed and you plan to get up in 8 hours. It means like you're in bed ready to fall asleep at that prime time, so you have the full sleep opportunity. That's where we have a difficult time, because if we're getting into bed and we're not actually tired and we need some time to wind down, the wind down should be happening prior to, best case scenario, prior to the full hours of sleep that your body requires. And if you're someone who has children, super important to know that at various stages and phases, children need more sleep. So they start out needing so much more when they're newborns. Our high schoolers, who do tend to shift on the 24-hour clock, they tend to go to bed later and get up later. That is a normal shift that happens in their development. Unfortunately, many of them are not getting enough hours of sleep. They need probably closer towards those 9 to 10 hours of sleep. But I feel like there's very few kids that age bracket that get it. And I was definitely one of those college students, like you talked about, who is staying up till 2 a.m. and getting up at 6 to go to class and not getting enough sleep and being chronically sleep deprived. Did I do my best work? Probably not. Did I make the best choices? Probably not, along with many other people. So it's just important to know that biologically, we need to get a certain amount of sleep. And if we're not setting ourselves up to get, that might be a good place to start when we're looking at improving our sleep. Are we actually giving ourselves the opportunity to get enough sleep? And are we figuring it out? Do the test, figure it out. If I sleep 8 hours, is that enough? If I give myself 10, do I feel better? And then figure out, okay, this is what I need. This is my sweet spot that I know I go to bed, I fall asleep, I stay asleep. And when I wake up, I feel refreshed and ready to start the day.
I love that. And I just got an Aura ring recently, and I love the sleep data it gives me because last night I was trying to read, and I've created a similar to 75 Hard. I don't know how familiar you are, but you've got all these tasks. I wanted something a little bit more realistic for my life. So it's read 10 minutes. And I typically read before bed. I could barely keep my eyes open. I was so exhausted. I was like, I have a minute and a half left. And I kept feeling myself doze. But I love the data my ring has been giving me, because it helps me really understand that, and maybe I'm going to say this wrong, the chronotype, is that right? Of when my optimal bedtime is based on the night before, which has been really cool to It's not always ideal based on the schedule for me to do it, but I can consciously make that decision of, am I able to fall asleep in that time period?
Mm-hmm.
So let's go to the pre. People who have trouble falling asleep. Let's break this up into falling asleep and staying asleep. I feel like those are the
Mm-hmm.
two most common areas of, oh, I sleep for 2 hours and I'm up the rest of the night, or I lay in bed for hours and I just cannot wind myself down. So let's start with
Mm-hmm.
the trouble falling asleep. What
Love
are
it.
some common habits or lifestyle factors that may be contributing to them having trouble falling asleep at night on a regular basis? Not just a one-time thing, but on a regular basis.
Yeah, I would say there's a few different categories of people the people who lay their head on the pillow and their mind gets busy. So I call them my busy brains because they're my people. I understand. These are people who are extremely creative. These are people who go a mile a minute all day long. These might also be people who are experiencing some nervousness, some anxiety, some worries, some things that really show up when they get still. So, those are definitely some reasons why somebody is going to lay down and they can't fall asleep. So, in order to be able to fall asleep, your brain wave activity has to be in the theta state. So, that's the state that's one step up from delta. Okay. Above that, above theta is alpha. So, that's like we are right now. We're having a conversation. We're pretty much alert, but our bodies are quiet, and that's okay. We could still attend. Above that is beta, which is more like if you're exercising, you're at the gym, you're really moving your body. So you're not anywhere near ready to sleep when you're in the gym and you're bouncing around, right? You're not feeling sleepy, most likely, unless you're chronically sleep deprived. And then there's high beta, which is stress, defense. Okay. So high beta is stress. If you're somebody who's feeling a lot of stress and you get into bed feeling stressed, your body is in a state of stress. It's going to take a lot for your body to come down to the point that it's relaxed. So that is often a problem that I notice with people, that they're getting into bed, they have a lot going on, they haven't stopped all day long, and their brain is still going and going. So that is one area that could be affecting them. Now, it could also be your brain is very alert because of the things that you did, the things you ate, or the things you drank. That could be a contributing factor. So I know I'm somebody, if I have caffeine after noon, like after 12 noon, I know it's going to impact my sleep. So I try not to have any caffeine afternoon, and earlier the better, because I know caffeine takes a long time to come out of my system. And if caffeine is still in your system, it could create alertness, and it also could be an issue for people who find they are able to fall asleep, but they get wide awake. That could be the caffeine hitting them. So that's another piece. Exercise. So if you're somebody who gets a lot of energy from exercise, if you're exercising too close to the time you want to go to bed, you could actually be creating too much alertness in your body. And that's what we like exercise for, right? It helps us feel more alert, helps us get ready to do other things in our lives, but it's not great straight before bedtime. So some people need to wait 4 hours. So if you're 4 hours to bedtime, now maybe it doesn't bother you, but if you're having a difficult time, that could be a contributing factor. The other things that can contribute are food, or if you're drinking, any liquid could, because if you are sensitive to liquids and they make you feel like you have to pee when you get into bed, that could wake you up. And digesting your food. So I know I'm somebody who I don't eat anything after dinner time because I find if I do, it tends to affect me. And then I'm having heartburn, or I just have that feeling like I'm trying to digest something and I can't sleep. So those are many of the things that could be impacting you. But one of the really big issues that I think a lot of people have is being at such a high level of engagement in that alpha and that beta, right up to the time they want to go to bed and expecting their body to just be ready for sleep. So light has a very high impact on our sleep-wake cycles. It can be positive and negative. So getting too much light in the evening can have an impact on the release of melatonin in your body and can end up making you feel too alert and too awake and not feeling that sleepy feeling that helps you fall asleep. Light in the morning when you first wake up on your eyes actually helps trigger for the time that you need to go to bed. So getting light in the morning is a great way for you to prime your body to get ready for sleep.
Yeah, and now that the weather's changing and we've got a time change coming, whether it's spring or fall or wherever that time change comes, that also affects if you're someone with the curtains open and all of a sudden the street lights are on and it shines right in, but you want that natural light when you wake up. So light is a big factor. And I think that also falls into staying asleep. And from what I know about sleep is things that can wake you up are things that we may not even notice that are happening in our environment. That it could be a spouse getting into bed, or it could be something rustling outside that we don't consciously know it's happening, but depending on what stage we're in, it could be just a disruptor. And is
Mm-hmm.
that part of the reason why people have trouble staying asleep? Or is it more of what you mentioned already, our food's digesting, our body's finally hitting that caffeine, or I know I indulge in alcohol every once in a while. That is my worst sleep I will ever get. I drink a lot less as I get older because I love my sleep and it's the way our body metabolizes things. So, what are some
Mm-hmm.
things that are habits or lifestyle factors for us staying asleep if that's where we fall? Going to bed, easy peasy. Okay, but now I'm
Mm-hmm.
up throughout the night.
Yes.
What do I need to focus on?
So I think a lot of these factors are environmental, and that is one area that I like to help people with is to really consider the environment in which you're sleeping. So consider all of the sensory aspects, the light, the smells, the sight, the sounds. So dark is better,
Mhm.
cooler, not having things that have incidental light sources, like you said, that can wake you up. If you have your cell phone in your bedroom and the screen lights up, that could wake you up. We actually, right before we fall asleep, our body temperature needs to drop a couple degrees in order for us to be ready to fall asleep. If your temperature in your bedroom is too warm, it might keep you awake. And that,
Mm.
spoiler alert for people who are dealing with hormone shifts in perimenopause and menopause, I think has a big impact on your sleep because you're having these episodes of your body temperature going up, causing you to wake up. So being able to control the environment. Now, other people can also be sleep disruptors. So your spouse or significant other, children, pets, some of which we have control over. I always like to say for brand new moms, like a lot of this advice, just ignore. Like you are
Yeah.
just trying to get through the stages and phases of babies and them learning to navigate their own sleep wake cycles. So you're not doing anything wrong necessarily. You're just in that time in your
Survival.
life. It's a season and it feels like it'll never end when it's happening, but it does get better. I can say from experience, it is better. And it was before my son was 10 that sleep got better
Yes.
and less interrupted. But yeah, so sometimes you have to figure those things out. You have to be a little bit of a detective and say, what could it be? There are other things that you might not even think about in your environment. I've worked with people who have determined that, oh my gosh, what's keeping me awake? I have this unfinished project in my bedroom that I don't want to go to bed. And when I'm in there, all I can think about is it's a mess. Or your bedroom environment is disordered, which has
Mhm.
been a problem for me in the past. When you have all the baskets of laundry and all of the glasses on your nightstand. And so, number one, that does not feel restful, does not feel like your
Mm.
retreat. And when I say retreat, yes, we would love to have a five-star hotel kind of bedroom space. Sounds amazing. Obviously, we're not all able to have that, but think about the things and the elements in those kind of spaces. It's sparse. Everything has a place. The beds are made for you. So you walk in, you're like, oh, that's so nice. Somebody made the bed and I didn't have to. It's those things that really trigger the sensations and the feelings of sleepiness and coziness. And you just want to dive into that bed and have your best sleep ever because you can control the temperature in the room. You can block out the light completely. So those sensory items can be super helpful in figuring out. And if you've done that and you have good habits, then maybe it is something going on mindset wise that is impacting your sleep, and figuring out, how do I manage around that?
I love that. And I love the analogy of the five-star hotel because as you were saying that, I was thinking through our spare bedroom is my closet. It is a tornado of clothes half the time because the laundry comes up. Hanging up clothes is my least favorite thing. So there's always a pile of hanging clothes, but it's not in our bedroom. It's in the spare bedroom. But in our bedroom, in the morning, I take care of what I need to. I walk in with only what I need at night. Or if I decide to work in there during the day, everything does have a spot. It is clean and it's organized. And I feel that same way in my workspace. If my workspace is in disarray and unorganized, it's hard to focus. It makes sense that that translates into our sleep patterns and those
Mhm.
subconscious thoughts we have of all that messiness, where if we could take care of that. So I love that. I love that analogy there.
Yeah, I think it really helps because it's something we can envision in our heads and say, how do I do that? And really, to do that, a lot of times it's not about buying brand new curtains or new bedding. It's more about what's in there that doesn't need to live there. So I love how you said that about I don't like on the regular to have laundry baskets just hanging out with clothes in them in various states of done and undone.
Mhm,
It's even as simple as, are the surfaces in your room clear? It really does change your mindset to walk into those spaces, And like you said, if you have an office and it's the dumping ground for everything, do you feel like walking in there and working? Probably not. I know I don't. I feel like I'm my most creative and functional when I take the time to clear everything. And I'm like, oh, look at this beautiful desk. I'm ready to do some amazing work.
mhm,
Same thing with bed. Could be something as simple as make your bed. And that
mhm.
could literally be put your pillows at the top and put the blankets over. It doesn't have to be super fancy. Just the idea that it's made and then you get to unmake it to prepare it for yourself. It creates a ritual and a sacredness around bedtime for yourself. Because I think sleep has become the bad guy in some ways. Like, it's really
Mhm.
annoying that we have to sleep, that we have to. But I see it as, oh my gosh,
I
we
love
get
it.
to. I love sleep. Obviously,
Obs-
I'm a little more obsessed than most people. And so I talk about it. I love it. I love sleeping. And it's a vital life function.
Mhm.
You cannot survive without adequate sleep. It can take years off your life. It can create a more prevalent case of having illnesses later in life. It really puts you at very high risk factors. You know what happens when the time changes? We have an increase in car accidents and heart attacks.
Mm,
This is actual studies that they've done. Dr. Matthew
mhm.
Walker is like one of my favorite brains about sleep. He's like the guy, if you want to look him up. But he's done numerous studies and collected studies on sleep. And that's one of the things that we find. So people are more likely to have car accidents and heart attacks. So, what does that tell you about sleep? And that's literally shifting an hour.
Yeah,
And it
that's an
has
hour.
a
Twice a year.
global, twice a
Like
year.
twice, not like on a
Mhm.
regular.
Mm-mm. Twice a year, an hour twice a year. And it has that much of an impact. So to me, that's just more information for us about the importance of getting enough sleep on our health, our well being, our safety. Do you want a surgeon who's sleepy doing surgery on you? No, thank you. I want somebody who's very well rested and taking care of their brain and their nervous system.
Mhm. Absolutely. I still nanny and I can tell when I'm sleep deprived because let's talk about sensory for a second before we move into some practical tips. But I can tell when The fan above the stove is going. One is talking to me. There's music playing in the background. The sensory overload and how my brain
Hmm.
can't regulate itself. More specifically, on days when my sleep is disrupted, I stayed up too late and I still had to get up at 5 in the morning. There are sometimes where life just has to happen the way that routine is, and there's nothing I can do
Hmm.
about it. But I can tell that and I'm crankier. And there is so much that happens when I get poor sleep. And I think a lot of times we chalk it up to, oh, it's just who I am. There's a lot going on in life. But if we were to prioritize our sleep, prioritize going outside, taking a walk, like doing these low impact things and readdressing ourself and our mindset, we would feel better overall.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, sensory wise, what is like people who have a sensory overload? How can that affect our sleep, even if it's not happening in that moment? Maybe we had sensory overload earlier in the day, but we can still feel some of that. I'm not sure if trigger is the right word, but that elevated stressor feelings, even though that situation is done with, if that makes sense.
Yes. No, it makes total sense. So we can tend to accumulate those in our nervous system, the experiences that we're having. Imagine like a piggy bank, and you're just, or even like a glass of water, and like you keep adding water to the glass, and at a certain point you overflow, right? And then there's the coming down off of that overflow of emotions, of sensory overload. We're overstimulated. There's just so much information coming in all the time, and if you're not consciously keeping track and like distancing yourselves from some things, you could just be like all the time taking in way too much information, way too many people's opinions. And it's like, how do I keep myself grounded and centered in all of this? So, that same nervous system that's regulating your sleep wake cycles is the same nervous system that's managing your sensory systems and being overloaded, getting enough of what you need, or getting into that state of shutdown, which also happens. That's all part of the same nervous system. So that's why everything plays off of each other. So I want you to mention this. You have your sympathetic and your parasympathetic nervous system. And so they're the yin and yang. The sympathetic is that fight, flight, freeze, fawn, all of those pieces. Your parasympathetic is your rest, digest, relax. Okay. So they're opposite each other. If you're constantly in a state of fight or flight, where are you not going in your nervous system? To the parasympathetic side.
Mhm.
So people who are highly stressed, what else is going on for them? I don't sleep well. I got stomach issues, because your body is not having those states of coming up and coming down and coming up and coming down. We all have a different level of tolerance. We all have different things that we find our preferences, things that we can tolerate, things that we cannot tolerate. But we all have the potential for overload. And so our lives can be very overloading. So, like you're saying, it's not just, I had a bad night of sleep and now somebody's yelling at me and there's the noise over there. And it also, you're priming the pump, like you're already here, can't take anymore. So it accumulates. This happens with our children. These are the kids that I work with in the class, and the teachers, I don't know what happened. Literally, they spilled the glue and they fell on the floor screaming and crying. I take them through. Let's look at what was their morning like. Did they get a good night of sleep? Did they have a fight with mom over putting socks and shoes on? What happened to create this growing, and then boom, overload? Same for us. Same nervous systems. We're all built similarly in our biology, and we all have different levels that we can take, but we all have that same potential for overload. And when we're constantly in that state, we burn out, right? We talk about that all the time, just feeling completely burnt out. And then you don't have any energy. You don't have that vibrancy and ability to participate, and your relationships suffer. So I think that's a big piece, that emotional piece. People can't have the emotional intelligence because their body goes into shutdown. You don't have your frontal lobe. You lose that impulse control. This is a very important part of our brain to have engaged. but our lower systems and lower parts of our brain start to get more engaged than that. And we're in the fight. We're in the flight. We're in the flee. We're in all of those pieces that take us away from being able to engage with other people and participate to our best ability in our lives.
It's just crazy how our brain and our body works together and also can easily work against itself if we are
Mm-hmm.
not helping it in the best way possible. So, as we think about helping our body and everything I talk about, whether it's in the free Facebook group, it's in my business when I work with clients, or it's here in the podcast, is I want people to be able to walk away with simple, practical tips that in reality, they walk away being able to implement one, not all 5 or 10 that are given. But I like to give options because, as I said before, we are all different. There's no cookie cutter answer to you must take a bath before bed. Don't care who you are. Like, that doesn't work for everybody. That's just a possible tool. So, what are some simple, practical tips women can implement tonight? So, anybody who's listening, that they could say, I'm going to take this one tip and I'm saying it over and over because everybody likes to say, oh, I can do 3. You don't get an award for being able to do 3. Like there, I will not give you a star. If you actually do 1, I will give you a star. We need to be able to slow down and start doing less so that we get a better result for ourselves. So,
Yeah.
what are some practical tips you've got to help improving quality, quantity, sleep in general for them?
Yeah, I think for some people, it's just start with the awareness and just write it down. What time am I going to bed? What time am I getting up? How do I feel? Get a baseline. Be a scientist about your own experience. So write it down. Get a little journal. Say, I went to bed at such and such a time. I got up at such and such a time. I felt, you know, crummy. I felt great. I felt energized. I didn't really want to get up and I hit the snooze button too many times. So I think just taking some data, building some awareness of your own body and system, be curious. Like, how is this working for me? Is it working? Is it not working? That's a great place to start because with awareness, we can make a choice. We can change, right? I also think just looking at our life in general and saying what's working and what's not working for me. So if you're just in a state of overwhelm everywhere, like you might not want this to be so complicated. You might literally want it to be, I'm going to do a nice bedtime routine and I'm going to go to bed at a time that I know is going to get me enough sleep. And I'm just going to try that for a week. I'm just going to try it. I'm not going to make it complicated. I'm going to brush my teeth, wash my face, whatever you typically do during your nighttime routine. And I'm just going to go to bed and see how that goes. That's another way to go. Maybe a step 2, if you've already taken the data. I like to take the pre-data because I'm a data head.
Same.
I nerd out. Hey, listen, I have quizzes that I use with people when I coach them. I have Likert scales. We look at your satisfaction with sleep. We look at the quality of sleep that you're getting because I think it's so great to take that pre-test for yourself so that whether you've made a marked difference. Yeah, go.
And we do the same thing with nutrition. As people come, what should I change? What are we doing? We need to know what we're actually doing and not. And I think the biggest part about this, and maybe you don't see it as much in sleep, I see it more in nutrition when somebody keeps a simple food log and wow, you did really good with this week. Yeah, I don't usually eat that way. Why do we change our routine knowing that someone was looking at it? So, do you see that when people try to focus on their sleep, do you see them try to change their habits right away with just that awareness they're creating? Or do they tend to be pretty good about doing normal, trying to get a real baseline before they make changes?
I don't know. I think once you're aware of it, you're like, I said I would do this. It's also the commitment. Habits take time. And I think I think information is important. We've been led to believe that it's 21 days to a new habit, but that's not what the research shows. The research said it's probably like 66 days. Okay. So 66 days, that's a really long time. And how often do we try something for a couple of days? We're like, well, that didn't work. So here's what the science says about what works. Okay, number one, you're paying attention to it. That helps. That definitely helps. So like you're saying, if I say I'm not going to have dessert because I'm trying to cut back on sugar, like just by saying it, I'm not then that night going to have dessert because I'm like, I said I was going to give up dessert after dinner. So it builds that awareness. Maybe I also talked to you, Morgan. I said, Morgan, I'm working on this. And you were like, all right, I'm going to hold you accountable. I'm going to text you tomorrow morning and I'm going to ask you. Building accountability, saying it publicly. The more publicly you share, the more likely you are to stick to that. So that's the science behind habits. I also personally feel like this doesn't have to be like your mother telling you it's time to go to bed. It also gets to be about creating some quality time with yourself, engaging in some very critical, vital self-care, and you can make it enjoyable. There is no rule that says your bedtime routine has to be boring or has to be something that doesn't light you up. Like you said, it's not the same for everybody. Not everybody wants to take a bubble bath, but if you love a bubble bath and that would set the tone for you to feel relaxed, cared for, listen, as women, we give and give to a lot of people. That is a flex that we just have. We've been conditioned very much for it. Taking care of ourselves is a newer thing. I'm Generation X. We are learning this. As the younger generations come, they're learning from us. No, you've got to prioritize yourself. You've got to prioritize yourself, and sleep is so key. But it doesn't have to be painful. It doesn't have to be stressful. It gets to be a beautiful opportunity. If you're a mom, let's say, and you're like, I got to get everybody ready for tomorrow. No time like the present for everybody to learn how we get ready for tomorrow. We got school tomorrow. Everybody lay out your clothes for tomorrow. What's everybody having for lunch tomorrow? Let's do all the things we can do to love ourselves forward, which is a term I took from one of my friends, Laura Mazzata. It's my favorite. I use it all the time.
I like that.
Love yourself forward. Do the preparation. Think about everything you can do. If you're like me, mornings, I like it to be super light and easy. Like I want to just be able to have my cup of coffee, get dressed, and like very quickly get ready and out the door to work. So if that's you and getting things ready in the morning feels stressful, don't do that to yourself. Get it ready the night before. I've also learned to set some limits and boundaries around sleep routines. Our bedrooms stay mostly clear and clutter-free. Bedtimes are very important. And a little bit before bedtime, hour, even 2 hours, lowering lights, quieter voices, quieter activities, no more screens, put the screens away. Screens do not go into bedrooms, right? So that we are setting the tone for our nervous system to be ready to fall asleep. That is another really easy one to do. If you're somebody who's concerned, you want to be available for people to call you, put it across the room. If somebody's calling you an emergency and they're on your list, they're going to come through. It's going to be okay. You do not need to leave your phone on your nightstand. So it's either making you feel like you want to check it if you wake up in the middle of the night, or it's lighting up and it's disrupting your sleep. Mine gets plugged into the bathroom. I don't have it in my bedroom. I don't want it in my bedroom. Yeah. So those are some really simple, easy tips. If you are somebody who, when I talked about the bedroom environment, you are feeling overwhelmed by clutter, I have a strategy for you. And actually, anybody can do this. Okay. You're going to take 10 minutes to clear an area. Choose your nightstand. Choose something small, easy. You're going to be successful. We're going to think about our senses. Something to taste. So a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, a soda, a piece of gum, a candy. Okay. We're going to listen to our favorite jams. We're going to dress in our comfortable workout clothes because we feel like we're ready to tackle something. We're going to set a timer. We could maybe diffuse a scent, put on a perfume, light a candle, whatever it is. For 10 minutes, you're going to declutter an area. You're going to throw away any garbage. You're going to move things to the places they're supposed to be. You're going to, for 10 minutes, you're going to set a timer. When that timer goes off, you are going to stop. and you're not going to do more. You are going to then go do something you love to do. Watch your favorite show on Netflix, have a cup of coffee, drink a glass of wine, go for a walk outside, whatever it is that really lights you up. You're going to reward yourself for that 10 minutes, even if you didn't finish. And then you're going to do it again at another point in time, maybe that day, maybe a different day. What you're doing is you're changing your brain. You're affecting your reticular activating system, which is in the base of your brain. And that you're changing how you see clutter. Not as impossible, like I can't deal with this, but as this is possible for me, it's enjoyable and I can do it. Okay. Reticular activating system is the thing. If you tell somebody, I want a red sports car, all of a sudden you see red sports cars everywhere. People often talk about it like with manifestation, like you say the thing you want and you start to see it all the time. So we're trying to change the way that your brain sees these situations and change the way that you talk to yourself about it. So by giving yourself success, making it enjoyable, you can start to do that. Anybody could do that 10 minutes. If 10 minutes feels too daunting, try 5. But I'm telling you, just that habit, practicing it, rewarding yourself, you're going to start to feel like you can accomplish it. If you feel like it's just been a while and you need to reset your whole bedroom, I actually do have a nice PDF that will tell you exactly what to do if you're a checklist girl or guy. So I will share that with you too, Morgan, that you can share with people that you can use.
Awesome.
And it tells you how to set yourself up for success if you're going to declutter your whole bedroom. So I think those are some great first steps: building awareness, writing it down, just starting to find some ways to enjoy a wind down routine, practicing decluttering if that's a challenge for you, and then getting everybody on board with let's get prepared for the next day. And then let's all work on our bedtime routines together. I get ready for bed before I put my son to bed. He's 10, so he's a little more independent. But even when he was younger, I get ready for bed. So when I put him to bed, that's the last thing I need to do before I go to bed. So I'm not putting him to bed and going down and doing dishes. So that has been a game changer for me, because if you're a mom who's struggling with your kids falling asleep and you're stressed because you need them to get to sleep because you need to get back to all the things you have to do, all the things, get yourself ready for bed, even if it's at 7 o'clock, and help your child in the state and the calm nervous system that will have an impact. State is catchy in our nervous systems. So if we're feeling stressed and overloaded, our child is going to catch it. They're going to feel that. So taking care of ourselves before we take care of them is going to make a big difference. It's a game changer. Plus, if you have a particularly difficult bedtime, then all you have to do is go curl up in bed. You're not expecting anything else for yourself. Literally in your PJs, teeth brushed, contacts out, whatever, all done already. It's a game changer. It makes such a huge difference.
I even do that when I come home. If we get home from something and I know we're going to stay up and we're going to watch a show together, like contacts come out, teeth are brushed. I do everything I need to so I can literally like crawl from the couch to the bedroom when I'm finally ready to go lay down. It makes a difference. And kids and our partners and those around us, our animals even feel that stress. And when we're all in that high stress area, it's hard for everybody else around us to also calm. So I think that was a really good point that you threw in there. I'm going to go through one thing here first, and then I'm going to have you share how people can get in contact with you, ask more questions. So I started doing this on some of the episodes. And if you know anybody, whether it's your mom, your sister, your best friend, your girlfriend, you're a mom at your kid's school that you know would benefit from today's episode, who you know they're dealing with sleep deprivation. They're struggling to get through the world right now because they feel so sleep deprived, and they are not a newborn mom right now. Where, like Kelly said, we're not focusing on all these now if you're a new mom because you're focusing on survival. But if you are in any other stage and your sleep is suffering, open up your phone, share this in a text message to them and say, hey, you need to listen to this. I think this would benefit you. Because that is the way to help somebody else get this knowledge. Is what I found is when I tell people to share and we don't share why this episode is impactful to us, it goes on a list of podcasts to listen to when I have time. But when somebody makes it
Yeah.
personal and says, Morgan, you need to listen to this because this and this, we're more likely to listen to and we're more likely to help those people in our life. So, with that, Kelly, I would love to know, can you share a little bit about how people can reach you, how people can work with you, and like Kelly mentioned, anything she mentioned that she said she would give me, those will be in the show notes. So feel free to check those out. Also, her contact information will be there. But how can people reach out to you, ask questions, and work with you?
Absolutely. So I have something called a 15-minute sleep check. So people can schedule an appointment with me through my Calendly link. And it's a free 15-minute chat where you tell me what's going on with your sleep and I help you identify the first steps to making a difference for your sleep. Sometimes that's all people need. They just need like somebody to point them in the right direction. And then I do sleep coaching one-on-one with people. They can schedule an appointment with me and we go a little bit more in depth into creating a plan for you where you're really having a difficult time. A lot of times there's other influencing factors such as just overall overcommitment, disorganization, trouble with prioritizing, planning, structuring. I also help people with those skills. So if somebody comes to me and their sleep is impacted as a result of, that's also something that I can help people with. Some ways to make life a little less overwhelming and stressful and figure out how do you really prioritize when you feel like you have so many competing demands for your attention and everything is happening at lightning speed. So that's something I love to be able to give people tips and tricks for.
I love it. And we'll put your contact information in the show notes. People can reach out. And remember, we do have a free Facebook group. So you can either reach out to Kelly directly or myself directly if you have questions, or you can join the free Facebook group that's linked in the show notes. And if you call your shot and say, I am focusing on sleep, Kelly, I will make sure to get you an invite to that group so you can join. You can post about it and we'll hold you accountable. And that's what the group is for, to be with other empowered women who are looking for the same kind of camaraderie and group of people working towards themselves, their health, their overall well being. So, any last words here for us today, Kelly, before we jump off?
I would say I feel like at points in my life, I've probably been like the worst example of sleeping, like the poorest, the worst decisions. Like I've been through all of that. And now I would see myself as somebody who has absolutely put sleep towards the very top of my list. And it's something that I don't change. So the possibility exists for you to improve your sleep, and improving your sleep may solve or at least give you the ease to find the solutions for the things you've really been struggling with. I can remember being a kid, and if I had a really bad day, a fight with a friend, a bad test, something, my mom would say, you need to just get a good night's sleep. That advice is huge. Shut everything down, give yourself the gift of a good night's sleep, and see what's possible for you the next day.
I love it. Thank you, Kelly, again, so much for being here today. Thank you for all of you who tuned in. And remember, keep prioritizing yourself and your health. And you deserve to feel your best. So take time for you. And here's to another week of wellness. I'll talk to you all next time. Thank you for listening to the Empower Her Wellness podcast. I hope you feel more empowered and ready to tackle your wellness goals. If you have any questions or topics you'd like me to cover, feel free to send me a message. Make sure to subscribe and leave a review to help us reach more women just like you. Until next time, take control of your wellness and keep empowering yourself every day.